For our next question, so what are the War of the Nine Fairy Realms books about, and what did you focus on the most when it came to their world building? That cut out.
Kind of cut out there, sorry, but I have the question. So the Nine Fairy Realms. So with that one, it was because I had finished the Seniari Chronicles. I had all this world building in my head, and I thought readers would like to know about it. You know, it was a lot that never made it on the page for various reasons, and I work really hard to try never to info dump. This is like a pet peeve of mine, so I really try hard. But that meant that I had a lot of information that maybe was alluded to but never actually explained. So I also wanted to kind of challenge myself, I think, with writing an epic, something that was longer, something that was multi-point of view, something that was from both the hero and the antagonist's point of view. And so, yeah, so that's kind of where that came from. So it is the history of the Nine Fairy Realms. It's so in the Seniari Chronicles, the reason why Rie is framed for treason is because she sort of breaks the law of this treaty that was developed between the Nine Fairy Realms. And I never explain how that treaty was developed. I mean, there was a war, there was a battle between the Nine Realms, but you don't really know what happened other than that the end result was that the realms were separated from communication and from travel, with the exception of very few, sort of VIP diplomat kind of people, right? So kind of like going into North Korea. You don't do it, right? And so what I wanted to tell that story, and that's where it came from. So there's some of the same characters because they're elves and they essentially live forever. Not really, but essentially. And so a few of the same characters. It's got the mentor character from the Seniari Chronicles as well. And he's kind of he's an ancient guy, and he's a foreseer. So he has this ability to kind of see the future and predict the different outcomes, see all, kind of navigate things and guide how history develops, essentially. So he's involved in this book, and it's Rie's foster parents, Caruthanor and Lewin, high elves, who are both kind of nobodies, really. Caruthanor is the son of the greatest smith of the Nine Fairy Realms, but he doesn't really want to be a smith. He doesn't want to follow in his father's footsteps. He wants to be a soldier. He enjoys going out into the, practice yard and testing out all the brand new weapons. And so he's sent on a mission to get iron for the forge for a magical enchanted sword for King Othin, the High King. But like I said, he's kind of a nobody. He, other than being the son of a smith, he's just doing his job. And then Lewin is actually the handmaiden to the princess, the high elf princess. And she's a seamstress, and she's a bit of an enchantress, but she's never really focused on her magic to a great extent. She can make charms and things, and she thinks she's on this diplomatic mission into the Shadow Realm, but really the princess is trying to, catch herself a king for a husband. And so they're just people. They're just doing their jobs, and they kind of get caught up in these bigger intra-realm conflicts and have to kind of find their way. And the decisions that they make affect everything else. And it's kind of a story about how these people who seem to have no power ultimately influence the greater war, the greater outcome, and the future of their realms. And that's why I say, that true heroes aren't necessarily born. They rise from the shadows to claim the light. That's the whole kind of crux of it, is that we all have, through our daily decisions, we all influence everything around us. So that's where that all came from. It's the history of that world. And for the fans of the Seniari Chronicles, it has a lot of Easter eggs and a lot of little tidbits that you'll pick up on, kind of origin story stuff that, you wouldn't necessarily see from the Seniari Chronicles, but you'll see, you'll kind of get the background. But for new readers as well, you're not going to miss anything if you haven't read the Seniori Chronicles. And I did that very intentionally so that I'm telling the story, but now it's its own unique universe or its own unique story as well. They're connected, but they're not required reading, if that makes sense.